الرحيم إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I recited verses 27, 28, 29, and 30 from Surah Naba, chapter number 78, for which we've been doing the tafsir from the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan. And inshallah, one more session and we will be able to conclude the tafsir of this surah. In these few verses, if you remember, the discussion that we concluded last night was regarding tashakkur, thankfulness, gratefulness, right? That the discussion of being, showing our gratefulness toward the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how different aspects of that thankfulness were mentioned. Just to conclude on that, the ayat which we had recited, that لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that if you thank us, we will increase you. And the discussion was not increase in your wealth or anything that you have, rather increase you as a human being. Similar to وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, and not وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي إِلْمِي, right? This is where a person realizes, and sometimes we're oblivious of all the bounties that we have been bestowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sheikh Asadi, I'm sure you've had a chance to read some of the works that are associated with this individual. One of his anecdotes, when he talks about himself, he said, I've never been ungrateful in my entire life toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except when poverty struck me so hard that I didn't even have shoes to put in my feet, that I was without shoes. He said, at this moment, I was on the threshold of complaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and express my words of, complaint to Him, that I saw a man without hands and feet. So it's one of his anecdotes, he's mentioning that I've never been ungrateful until poverty struck me so hard that I didn't even have shoes when I was walking around the street. And I was about to express my displeasure and complain to Allah until I saw a man without hands and without feet. Right away I reserved with my complaint to Allah, and I thanked Him instead, saying that, oh Allah, at least you've given me feet and you've given me hands, that by which I'm still, able to do many things. So what if I don't have shoes to put into my feet? So a lot of time, he said, I thanked right away for that blessing which I already possessed. So a lot of time we're looking for those things which we don't have, and we overlook things that we currently possess. This is where our Prophet said, Al-imanu nisfuhu as-sabr wa nisfuhu as-shukr. Iman and faith, half of it is having patience, and half of it is being grateful toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that which He has given you, you're going to be thankful to it. That which He hasn't given to you and others have, been bestowed upon, you're going to do sabr. You're going to be patient over those things. Also, Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, he passed by a place where he saw a blind man laying on the ground with leprosy. His body was also paralyzed from both sides, but despite that, he was still thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was saying, oh Allah, I thank you for that you have kept many illnesses away from me. Hazrat Isa stopped and he said, what other illnesses? I don't see any other illness that you've been spared with. You got every possible illness in you. You're paralyzed. You got leprosy. You're blind. What illnesses that Allah has not given you that you are saying, oh Allah, I'm thankful for the illnesses that you have kept away from me? The man replied, my ma'rifat of Allah is very strong. My recognition of God is at its peak. And I am not weak in faith unlike others. Hazrat Isa, and he said, that's why I'm thankful for it. Jesus raised his hand. Hazrat Isa raised his hand and he made dua on behalf of that man. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed all the illnesses that he had at that moment. So a lot of time, it's just a test that you go through by the fact that how grateful you are and how ungrateful sometimes you and I can become. And at the end it says, إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا لَا يَرْجُونَ حِسَابًا. That indeed they did not expect any hisab, any reckoning. The word kizaba, which is used in the next ayah, وَكَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا كِذَّابًا, and they denied our signs mendaciously. This word kizaba, which is used coming after the verb from its same root, وَكَذَّبُوا كِذَّابًا, they denied a denying, or إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. So you have tathira coming from the same root, yutahirakum. How do they usually translate it? To purify you, the way of purification, or the way the right of the purification is, or the best purification. And that's how they usually translate. Here it says, وَكَذَّبُوا كِذَّابًا. They denied a denying. That's how you would translate it. Usually when the verb or this maf'ul comes from the same root, which is called maf'ul mutlaq, describing the verb, in this case denied, gives the meaning something like this. Their denial is amazing denial, with surprise. وَكَذَّبُوا كِذَّابًا يُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. That their denial is an amazing falsehood, which is mendacious. There's no way of even comprehending. That's why you use the verb from the same form. وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. Their purification is of a type of purification that you can't even imagine. Not just a regular purification that you and I do. No, they're purified in the best way that purification can be done. So that's how when in Arabic, the same root is used to describe the verb that just went past. And then so it says, meaning the disbelievers, they have no hope for any type of accountability. وَكَذَّبُوا كِذَّابًا. That means they have no hope of any kind of la yarjuna hisaba. They don't think there is going to be any hisab kitab, there's going to be any accountability. Usually denial of resurrection, yawmul fasl, leads to denial of tawheed, then nubuwwat, and obviously the qiyamat and the day of resurrection. وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ كِتَابًا. Next ayat says that we have figured everything in a book. Meaning that everything from your actions have been recorded in a book of great value. This book is an amazing book. لا يغادر صغيرة ولا كبيرة. It does not leave out the smallest of the acts and the biggest of the acts. People will be saying, what's wrong? What's up with this book? That it has everything in it that we used to do, that we used to consume, that we used to, perform. Everything has been included in this book. And in another place, in Surah Yasin, how this is mentioned, which could be taken two ways, that وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. There, some say that Imam Mubin is actually a reference to the book. That we have ahsayna means, gathered in this together. For example, there's nothing left out from it. It's ihsa. It's sort of like encompassing, engulfing everything, enveloping everything. There's nothing outside of it. Everything has been taken into record. So some say this Imam Mubin refers to the book. It's the attribute of the book itself. And some say, well, obviously, it is referring to Imam. It could be the Imam as well. فَذُوقُوا فَلَن نَزِيدَكُمْ إِلَّا عَذَابًا. After all of this, that they don't expect reckoning, they denied our signs, we figured everything in this book. Now, Allah says, so, taste. Now go ahead and taste. We shall increase you in nothing except punishment. فَذُوقُوا. Go ahead and taste the adhab, the result of the above discussion. Now taste the wrath, and it only shall increase upon you. We see that the discussion of hisab and kitab and accountability is something which is a reminder that has to happen every so often. Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one day when he was speaking to Abu Dhar, there's a lengthy hadith that he taught Abu Dhar Ghifari. When Abu Dhar found him to be alone with Amirul Mu'mineen, he said, this is the best opportunity to learn something from him when no one else is around. Because Rasulullah will speak to me at my level. When others are around, he has to speak in a way that everyone can comprehend. Kallumun nas ala qadri uqulihim. He himself said, speak to the people according to their intellect. So there are different intellects sitting in front of him. So he'll speak accordingly so that everyone can understand. But here he found this opportunity to speak to Rasulullah when he was alone with Amirul Mu'mineen. So he said, Rasulullah, do me nasihat, which will be helpful in this life and in the hereafter. It's a lengthy hadith. In fact, I had the opportunity to discuss the entire hadith in our Saturday morning Fajr discussion a few years back. One segment from that hadith. Prophet said, Ya Abadar. And all of these segments began with this, Ya Abadar, Ya Abadar. He said, Ya Abadar, Hasib nafsaka qabla an tuhasab. Do accountability of your nafs, of your soul, before it is held accountable tomorrow in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wazin nafsaka qabla an tuzan. So hasib nafsaka qabla an tuhasib. فَهُوَ أَهْوَنُ لِحِسَابِكَ غَدًا. Why? Hold yourself accountable today before you're held accountable tomorrow. Because it is easy for your accountability tomorrow. If you do this here, then you will not be held accountable in that fashion how it is described in Quran. فَإِنَّهُ أَهْوَنُ لِحِسَابِكَ غَدًا. It'll be very simple, easy. Ahwan means, easy. And then it wazin nafsaka qabla an tuzan. And weigh. Zin comes from wazn, right? And weigh your soul on the scale before it is weighed for you in the hereafter. وَتَجَهَّزْ لِلْعَرَضِ الْأَكْبَرِ يَوْمَ تُعْرَضُ لَا تَخْفَى عَلَى اللَّهِ خَافِيًا. And prepare yourself to be presented in the court of Allah, to be weighed in. Beware that nothing is hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Rasulullah explained to Abu Dhar that holding yourself accountable and weighing yourself before you're weighed in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't want to lose the thought, but how, there are certain weight limits that certain roads, they says, only this is a weight limit. For example, this bridge. So something which is above the weight limit cannot pass through this bridge. So if you are, then get off the exit. Don't go on this bridge, for example. Or this highway, this is the weight limit. And that's why you see on the side of the highways, there are weighing stations where, these trailers, these trucks, they pull over, they get weighed. And, whatever they do, if they're heavy, they remove some of the stuff and then they move on. So this is how they keep it. Similarly, airplanes, there's a weight limit that you're allowed to bring on your luggage, that, you're only allowed this much. You can't be bringing more than that. If you do, they charge you. And that is the reason, because they want to make sure that if there are, for example, 200 passengers, each one is allowed a certain amount. That's the capacity that this airplane can hold. So that they don't want to go beyond that, otherwise it could be, detrimental towards the flight, and it could be fatal, for example. Here, Rasulullah is saying, "Hasibu nafsaka, hasib nafsaka." Hold yourself accountable. This is, in fact, one of the practices that is mentioned to you and I. Ma'sumin, they say, "Hasibu anfusakum qabla an tuhasibu." Keep track of it, and accountability here, it will ease the burden on the day of judgment. When you hold yourself accountable here today, it will ease the burden on the day of judgment tomorrow. Accounting, bookkeeping in business, small or big. Even this institution that you are sitting in, there's a department of accounting. We have treasurers, who go ahead and make sure they keep a record of all the donations that come in. And now, inshallah, that we are expanding, we will be expecting more of your donations to be coming in. You'll get a receipt in the email, you'll get a receipt in the mail. Everything is transparent so that you know what is coming in and what is being spent where and why it is being spent over there. Like as if you don't have the vision. No, you do have the vision as well. It's just that certain people are given this task to go ahead and further the vision. Everyone has the vision that they want a better future for their children. Everyone has a vision that they want a school where their children would be free of the environment. Believe it or not, the school that I attended, I went through middle and high school over here, and I know the environment. A lot of you who came afterwards and weren't here at that time, you don't know that what's in there. And this is where it is very difficult for you to, train your children to cope with the environment that exists in the public schools over here. So what would be the best solution for it? The best solution would be to go ahead and have a school which offers the same standard or even better education, along with having an Islamic environment, so that you can be sure of the future generations. So that's the vision that all of you have, but only a few are pushing for it and trying to make sure that everybody gets on board, because a lot of people don't see it that way. And only a few have to see it in order for everyone else to get on board. Not everybody has to see it. We recited this ayat the other day from Surah Tawbah 122. فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ طَائِفَةٌ مِنْكُمْ, that why not some people from you get up, go attain the knowledge of deen, لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ, and then come back to your people and go ahead and warn them. So not everybody from this community got up, according to this ayat of Surah Tawbah 122. Not everybody listened to this ayah to get up and go and attain ilm deen and then come back and warn its people. Only a few did, because it's wajib-e-kifai. Not everybody has to do it. The word kafa that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in this ayah means it's wajib-e-kifai. Only a few have to do it. The rest do not have to do it. Not everybody needs to become an expert in deen, although everybody thinks they are experts in deen. Not everybody has to become expert in medicine, although some people think that they are. We all think that we are experts in medicine as well. But only a few will go ahead and do this so that they could be able to help others. So only a few had to see this vision. But then everybody jumps in, everybody becomes part of it so that it flourishes. And that's what we're trying to establish over here as well. So with that discussion, every institution has a department which is a bookkeeping, accounting department, where they keep the numbers, right? The people who are good with numbers. And they keep the math. They keep, what's coming in, what's going on, the inventory that they have, the, profits and the gains and the loss, whatever they had, and they keep record of all of that. So this year, we had some sort of profit. This year we made some money. This year we didn't have any profit. We didn't make any money. All of this has to be done on regular basis in order to avoid disasters. Because if you don't do this on regular basis, in a small business or a large business, you're waiting for a disaster to happen. So the reason a businessman would keep track is because he cares about his loss and gains and doesn't want any mishaps and disasters. Moments should also be the same and must not fall victim to nafs and its desires. That you should hold yourself accountable on daily basis. If we don't keep record of our sins or anything questionable that we have done, we will forget them very soon. But if we know, then it's like a loan that we want to pay off and get it off our shoulders. So therefore we see, today I walked in over here and for example, you were to ask me a question. We should have done a whole question and answer session. Inshallah, we'll do it in the coming weeks as well. Let's say we had a question and answer session and someone asked me a question. Moulana, how many sins that you did since this morning? I would be like, I'll have to think about it, because it's something which I think I did not do any since this morning. And, I'll start doing something like this. If the question was, how many good deeds have you done since this morning? Oh, this, I'll be counting. I started with recitation of Quran. I recited this dua. I prayed, on time. I'm fasting. I did this. I helped out this person. I helped out that person. I opened the door for so-and-so. All those 10 different things that I did from the morning were good. But the moment you ask me anything wrong, sin, haram, I'm going to start thinking in my head to, how can I even mention this thing? No, I can't mention this. So, no, I'm going to keep a lid on all the bad that I have done. So, okay, that was a tough question. What about in your life, how many sins have you committed? Oh, no, this is where you're not really posing a threat that what I did today. So yeah, in my life, I've committed a lot of sins, no doubt about it. I'm a human being, and insan makes mistakes. I've made mistakes as well. So I'll say in my 40 years of life, maybe 1,500, 1,000, being very generous to myself with inkisari. Maybe 1,000 sins, give or take here and there. This is where we see why am I being so modest when it comes to speaking about dirt on myself, something wrong with me. Because I have what is called hubbu dhat, love for myself. And everybody has that. Everybody has that. Nobody here hates themselves. They love themselves. You love yourself. Even if you may say otherwise, but you love yourself. And when you love something, you don't want to see any defects in it. And because we love ourselves, our souls, we don't want it to be stained. We don't want any dirt on it. Let alone someone else puts any dirt on it. We want to keep it clean. So right away you go ahead and say, well, no, I haven't done anything. This hubbidat leads to the fact that a lot of time I deny even the sins that I have committed. So nobody's saying, do this openly. This is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do this muhasabah between yourself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That, oh my Lord, this morning when I woke up or before going to bed, you do this hisab kitab. That I, for example, did this, I should not have done it. I ask for forgiveness. I performed this tawbah. You take care of that deed on that very night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will overlook that deed, that misdeed in the day of judgment. So that's how important it is to make sure that this hisab kitab and accountability and muhasabah of nafs is done on daily basis. In psychology, we discuss how can a person forget something that easily, and then sometimes we deny that. The reason is because mistakes and sins, it will remind and bring shame and disgrace, and we don't want to have any shame and disgrace about ourselves. But if you were to ask me, all the good that I have done, I will even be able to mention a good deed that I did 20 years ago. That check that I wrote 15 years ago, for example. I'll remember the exact figure of that check that I wrote for, when the masjid was being built, I donated this much money, for example. I'll remember it very clearly, without any doubt. But I'll forget about that wrong which I did maybe yesterday, maybe a week ago. My nafs will make me forget that. Because, at once, beginning, you will say, well, I should not have done it. And then a week later, you'll be like, no, I did not do it. And then you'll start forgetting about it, as if it never happened. But if you remember that a very same night, ask for forgiveness, guess what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep it easy for you as well. So this is as far as your tazkiyah nafs is concerned. One of the best ways of tahdhib nafs, which is the, beautification of the nafs, what tazkiyah nafs, which is the cleansing of the nafs and your soul, that has been mentioned by the scholars of al-akhlaq in books such as Mi'raj al-Sa'ada or Jami' al-Sa'adat and Ihya al-Ulum, is the 3 steps of musharata, muraqibah, and muhasabah. There's musharata in the morning, there's muraqibah during the day, and there's muhasabah at night. I just want to very quickly shed some light on one of the books which is also available in English. And you can search it on alislam.org and you'll find it, which is Jami'us Sa'ada or Jami'us Sa'adat. This is a book which has been written by Mullah Mehdi Naraqi, it's called The Collector of Felicities. It's called The Collector of Felicities. That's the translation of this book, Jami'us Sa'adat. Sa'adat, is the plural for Sa'ada, which is prosperity, felicity, and Jami is the collector or the collection of it. So it's available in English. I'm sure it's available in Urdu as well. Mullah Mehdi Naraqi, there were 2 brothers, him and his brother, Naraqi brothers. They were known for their akhlaqiyat. And so he wrote this book. When he wrote this book, he sent a nuskha, a copy of this book to Najaf. He was in Naraq, in Iran. There's a city called Naraq. He was there, and he sent a book to Najaf, to the Ayatollah Marja of the time, over there. That was Sayyid Muhammad Baharul Ulum. And when Sayyid Muhammad Baharul Ulum received this book, he read through it, He read about it, he read every single page of it, and he was immensely impressed with what was written in it. Although it may be a book for a beginner who's treading on the path, learning, just the akhlaqiyat from the very beginning. But when he read through and he found what was written by this author, he was just blown away and he was amazed. And he made dua that, oh Allah, one day I get to meet this scholar. This is a time when traveling is not that easy. And in fact, many of these scholars, they hardly left their lands. So he said, I wish I get to meet this person who has sent me this book, for example. After a while, Moulana Raqi, he actually travels to Najaf for Atabat, for the ziyarat. And when he travels, obviously he was also a scholar of his time. For example, one of the maraji of Najaf or Qom comes to New Jersey. You think you won't know about it? It will be all over, social media. That Ayatollah so-and-so is visiting New Jersey. He's going to be in this center today. He's going to be in that center tomorrow. He's going to be, making a visit here and there. And then you will find that there's so much, there won't be enough room. So you get the idea. When this person came, and inshallah I'll conclude with this story. When this person, Ayatollah Naraqi, he was himself at that level of marja'iyah. When he visited, he was in Najaf. Everybody knew about it. And even Sayyid Bahar al-Ulum, he heard about it. So all these scholars, they came to visit him. Mullah Mahdi Naraqi. They were coming and visiting. This person is visiting us, so let's go ahead and visit him. They're coming and seeing him, except one person, and that is Sayyid Muhammad Bahar al-Ulum. So Mahdi Naraqi said to himself that that's okay. He may be busy. He's a busy man. He's a scholar. He's a teacher. He's a professor. He's got things to do. So I'll go visit him. It's not a big deal. So he goes to his lecture. Ayatollah Bahar al-Ulum, he was giving the lecture, as if, I'm speaking right here. Mullah Mahdi Naraqi walks in. He sits on the corner without disturbing the lecture. Bahar al-Ulum continues to give lecture, does not pay any attention to him, concludes the lecture, and goes away. Mullah Mahdi Naraqi leaves. Second day, he finds that, maybe he was busy, he didn't see me, I'll go again. And this non-treatment this cold shoulder, if you want to call it, did not make Naraqi feel one bit little bad. For example, you and I, if we go to someone's house or if we get invited somewhere and we don't get any attention, how would we feel? Mahdi Naraqi, no, I'm not showing up there tomorrow, forget about it. I'm not going there again. Mahdi Naraqi said, no, I'll go there again. The very next day he visits again, even colder than yesterday, the reception was. Zero attention toward him. Same thing happens, he leaves. Third day was his last day in Najaf, and then he was going to go back. His people, his friends, they said, this was not right. You are not dealt with properly of your caliber, individual of your caliber. And so he said, that's okay, but this is the last day. I want to still go ahead and meet the Sayyid. I don't want to leave Najaf. I've come all this way and leave without having met him. He said, after the 2 days of his treatment, you want to go back again? He said, yeah, so what? I don't feel bad about it. In fact, meeting him and seeing him is an honor for me. Although they're both at the same level in caliber. So third day, someone goes and says to Sayyid Bahar al-Ulum that Mahdi Naraqi is coming to see you today again. When Sayyid Bahar al-Ulum hears that, he runs out of his house without amama and barefoot. And I just said it, but it's very unheard of for a marja to leave his house without his amama and without his aba and without his foot and barefoot. He ran out of his house to go to the end of the street to welcome and do istiqbal of Mahdi Naraqi. People were amazed. 2 days you treated him like this, and today you're running barefoot to go ahead and receive him? What changed? Yeah, nothing changed. I always had high, regards for him. And I loved the book that he had written. I read it, in fact. But I was just testing to see that what he had written in his book, was it for only people or was it also applicable for him as well? That what he had taught in that book, how to show akhlaq even in front of adversity, will he be able to handle that if he faced the same adversity? Or was it only just a book written for people so that people go ahead and follow it? Kind of like people like me who come on the minbar and podium, we say a few things, advice here, left and right, some ahadith of akhlaq, rarely do we apply it to ourselves. Or is it something that is applicable? And then he sat him down on the seat where he used to give lecture from, and he sat down on the floor with his zanu, with his feet folded in talammuz. He said, do wa'az for us. This is how he treats a man whom he treated 2 days ago in that way. Just to show the akhlaqiyat of that individual, that he was beyond what he had written in that book of his. Inshallah, we'll continue the discussion under the tafsir of Surah Naba. And the 3 steps that I mentioned are musharata, muraqaba, and muhasaba. I'll shed more light on it. Musharata is conditioning yourself with your Lord. Muraqaba is watching over it throughout the day. And muhasaba is doing hisab kitab and holding yourself accountable at the end of the day. Wa akhiru dawana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.